Okay, now we're going to look at how you create a glossary in Moodle. Again, the first thing you want to do is make sure you have editing on. You want to go to the unit where you want to add the glossary. Click on Add an Activity or Resource. And glossary is right after the games. Click on it. This gives you a general description of what it is. And what it basically is students can define the terms either that you provide them or you ask them to get from an outside source directly into Moodle, and then everybody can see them. You can actually set it so either everybody can see them or they each have their own glossary. And then they can also be auto-linked so that every time that word comes up somewhere in Moodle, it's actually highlighted in blue as like a hyperlink, and it will go to the glossary if it's clicked on. That you can set as well. So if you want to add a glossary that students work collaboratively on, you would add, again, it needs to have a name, something like that. And then in the description is where you're going to either list the actual terms that students need to define, or if you have an external textbook, you could reference the page where they could find the list. They also need some directions here, so you want to provide those as well. I often mention that you don't want to include duplicates, so because I'm referencing an outside source, a page where they can find the list on, I don't include them, but that might not be the case. It may be that you want to list all of the terms that they need to choose from. Again, you can have it saved or not. You could add photos, you could add videos if you wanted, and some like to create a photo or a video glossary. In which case you could include in your instructions to include such things. So for example, something like that. And that kind of brings the glossary a little bit more to life, a little more color, and definitely helps with how it looks. And then looking at entries, a lot of these you're probably going to leave if you want to make sure that you approve them and that they don't just automatically get approved. You might want to click, in my case, because I don't have an inside list, I'm having them reference it externally, I might want to click no, that I would approve it. It depends on the class. Always allow editing. Again, you can decide about a lot of these. Duplicate entries allowed, that's a big one. Again, usually no. And then here, some people think it's annoying that that they're linked every time it's mentioned in the text somewhere in Moodle, so they actually disable this, and some people really like it. So that's personal preference. You can have it either linked so that it's a hyperlink or not. And then as far as the appearance, again, you can play with these and see how that changes things. It's just the appearance, how it's going to look. The grade, you're going to want to link it somewhere in your grade book. Now, some people decide not to grade this. Again, personal preference. I think that if a student has to do work, they should get a score for it. That's my personal view. So I would actually have this as a grade. And it's in the ratings, though, that you need to specifically set that. So it won't be graded. It won't have an actual point total associated with it unless you come in and change this to either the average of ratings, the sum of ratings, something along those lines. And then that'll allow you to change the scale to 100 being the highest grade. And then you can set the dates if you want to. So the grade and the ratings are very important in this case. Entries has also got some things you might want to change. The common module settings and the restriction of access, I usually, again, leave as their default. And then with the activity completion, once again, this is personal preference. The student either marks it or they're required, in this case, to do 3. So I'm going to change that to 3 entries. And that is when the computer will check it off. So then if we save and display, it looks pretty basic. You can see that the student will click on Add a New Entry. And once they've added their entry, it'll these letters will show up in dark, indicating that there is a word with that starting letter. So here's my explanation, and this is what the students would see. So once again, going back to the course, if I wanted to move this about in the course, and you guys have already seen this, I might want to move it up to the very top. I generally have it at the top so that we get the terms defined kind of as the first thing. You could indent it. This is where I definitely duplicate, because when you duplicate it, it asks you, are you sure? If you're going to do this for every single chapter, for example, what I did is I duplicated it and then edited it so that the corresponding page was correct. So this is taking a while, so then I'm going to edit the new copy, and it's going to let me change it. So then I would just go in, change it to edit chapter 4, and those are on page 104, we'll say, and everything else is the same. And then I would just save and display. And since I've duplicated it, so then it looks exactly the same, I can double check. It's going to appear again in the unit where I duplicated it right here. So obviously I would then move that out to wherever I wanted it, chapter 4 for example. So that's a good example of why you would want to use the duplicate. And that is how you add a glossary.